Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ChangeWorks Interactive. I've got a very special guest today. Let me tell you about this guest. I've known Jason for a relatively short period of time. We have some mutual friends. And I was introduced to Jason several months ago at a networking event, and we kind of hit it off. And Jason does some pretty cool things. And when I grow up, maybe I want to do some of the things that Jason does. Mind you, I probably couldn't. Anyways, let me tell you a little bit about Jason. With over 21 years in the fitness industry and 11 years in high-performance coaching, Jason has worked with some of the world's top athletes. He's a former junior hockey player and a varsity lacrosse player at McGill, and he holds several certifications in health, in fitness, and performance. He's also worked with ATP tennis players. He managed an Major League Baseball All-Star off-season team, and he oversees the ongoing development of 20-plus NHL players and 30-plus elite junior athletes. He's the head strength and conditioning coach at Junction Performance and player development strength and conditioning coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jason is passionate about helping both professional athletes and everyday athletes achieve their best results. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kev. This is great.
Great. Glad you're here. Before we get started, little shout out to the professional team that helps us at ChangeWorks Interactive. If you need good professional work to be done, digital marketing, contact Keegan and his team, and they'll certainly help you out. Thanks, guys, for all you do. Well, let's get started right away, Jason. I'm curious to know, how did you get into this field? Because it seems like that's kind of the top of the pyramid, you know? Yeah. Tell us how that all.
Sure. I don't love big intros for myself, but I'll top level stuff. I mean, I was always kind of interested in it. I grew up playing every sport under the sun, so I enjoyed sports. Strength conditioning wasn't huge for sports back, I'm not that old, but even then I wasn't really that popular. Mm-hmm. But I did get my first training certification at 16. So I was like still in high school, and I was curious. Wow. And I met a phys ed teacher who had their training degree or training certification, and they kind of introduced me to it. I thought it was pretty cool. So I got on that train and then went to university, took phys ed at McGill. Wasn't sure if I really wanted to be a teacher in a school, but I liked the idea of teaching. Yeah. And obviously, get to be around athletics and sports of some kind. So I figured, hey, let's get a degree, meet some people, stay in a field that I know I enjoy. Where it'll lead, I wasn't really sure. I continued to work as a trainer throughout university. I finished university, knew pretty well I wasn't going to teach in a school, at least at that point. Yeah. So I gave myself a bit of a year to keep working at the gym I was at and just try to meet people and be good to people and just see what happens. That led me to meet another trainer who got me into the CrossFit world. So long story short, we ended up opening a CrossFit gym together. Shortly after that, I moved from Montreal to the Toronto area, mainly because of my now wife. We met at McGill.
That happens. That happened to me too.
Yeah, it's something had to give. So
that's right.
No, it was great. It was obviously really happy to be out here, and I do enjoy it out here. And then worked at a couple CrossFit gyms while I was here, and then I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Andy O'Brien. In my mind, he's one of the gurus in the field that I'm in. I was lucky enough; it was by fluke I got to meet him. And I just kind of was kicking it around with him one day, and I was like, hey, man, if I want to get in the direction of what you do, this is literally a conversation. I said, if I wanted to do anything going towards what you do, where would you have me start? And he literally said, this is how nice the guy is. This guy's the best. Everyone in our own respective fields, we have people that were they are the best at what they do, both character-wise, technically-wise, whatever. Yeah. This is that guy. And he was like, I'm moving at the time he was living in Calgary, he's like, I'm actually moving to Toronto soon. Do you want to be part of my team?
Wow.
And I went, what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you've met me for 3 hours. How could, he's like, I can tell. Yeah. And I was like, I'm so far behind your knowledge base. He's like, don't worry about it. That's easy. I can't teach character, but I can teach the skill stuff.
Nice.
And he's just been around and has that kind of personality of like wanting to help people, and he opened my eyes a ton to high performance. Obviously, hockey is something we specialize in, and he has too. He's best known as being Sidney Crosby's trainer since Sid was 13. Needless to say, done pretty well. But he's also worked with other elite athletes that are maybe a little less public, and they've all been very, very successful. So I was fortunate enough to meet him, and from there worked with his private business, and then now we work with Junction Performance both together. He's a consultant for us. I'm kind of the head strength coach, but he's always in my corner, and I owe a lot of where I am today to that man. So
when you started working in this world, you're working with world-class athletes, and you're just starting out. Is there an adjustment that you have to go through mentally where you say, like, okay, I got to lose the imposter syndrome here, and I'm going to actually provide some value for these people?
100%.
Yeah.
It's almost, I feel like I've been told this by other people that I live in the imposter syndrome. So like I'm like that still to this day sometimes. So definitely when I first started, and I'm around people that I watch on TV playing hockey,
Sure.
I'm like, oh, I can't screw this up. So I start off quiet but confident, and try to just be a sponge. And I found what made things easier, and I didn't necessarily do it on purpose. It just kind of like, it was just in my character, I guess, where I just got to know them. And that was, trust is everything in that world. And knowing that you're on their team, I learned very quickly that that's what matters first and foremost. Secondly, it also matters a lot when you admit when you don't know something. Once I got that out of the way, then once I was confident with what I was actually delivering, like the content, then it went from there. But if I didn't know, I didn't make anything up, or I didn't give them what I thought would be bad advice. I would be like, let me find out for you, and then follow up.
Yeah.
And I found that was a good way for me to build trust. I knew I had the character to get along with people. I enjoy being around people, and I enjoy interacting with people, so I wasn't too worried about that part of it. I just didn't want to. Andy was my standard, and I was like, oh man, these are tough shoes to fill. So I think like I slowly integrated. Just tried to keep learning, but also wasn't shy to say like, let me double check.
Yeah, really interesting when you look at those key pivotal people in our lives that provide that mentoring, just like Andy did.
Yeah.
What I start thinking about while you're saying your story, Jason, is the leadership that happens in that dressing room or in the gym. And question for you is Sidney Crosby as motivated as people say he is, whether that's what you've observed on the ice or off the ice? What's that like?
When it comes to athletes, I usually keep information top level, but I'll promise you that everything that is said about that man is accurate.
Wow.
So the character, the genuineness, and the work ethic are all what you see and what is advertised, and probably more so. So he's someone to look up to. Let's put it that way.
Okay. When you meet somebody for the first time, we'll change gears on you a little bit.
Sure.
When you meet somebody for the first time and you're doing, maybe you're doing an assessment, we've kind of chatted briefly about 4 pillars that you're kind of looking at.
Yeah.
Maybe walk us through that a little bit of what that would look like, or some of the key things that you're looking for when you first meet somebody.
Yeah, I think it and a lot of people ask like, how different is it with an athlete versus people like me and you, general population that just want to be fit and healthy. The nuance of the conversation is obviously different, but the foundation isn't. The reality is if you look at health and fitness in general, there's 4 major pillars. You have movement and exercise. Mm-hmm. You have nutrition. You have sleep and recovery, and then you have lifestyle, which I put habits, stress. That's a big bucket. The reality is you're only as fit or as strong or whatever you want to call it as your weakest pillar. And I think it's important as a performance coach or anyone that's just trying to get better is like you have to take a little bit of an inventory of how each of those pillars are doing. And then that helps us decide where we go. And there might be nuances or little things within each pillar that you're going to focus on, but you have to look at the big rocks and like what's if someone is very fit and they come to me and they're like, I need a new training program. But then I find out like they don't sleep well, or they're always going really, really hard and don't recover. Like, a new training program is not what we have to have a conversation about. Like, we have to dig into some of those other things to allow you to express all the effort that you're putting in.
Right.
So it's most of the time when I see someone either for the first time or I haven't seen them in a while. So let's say our athletes that have gone away for season come back.
Yep.
We start with a conversation. How you doing?
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about it. What are your routines for the next little while? Do you eat at home? Do you eat out? How is your sleep? How would you rate your sleep? And it's funny, I give a numerical rating for people, and I ask them, out of 10, how's your sleep? And then I say, out of 10, do you find your nutrition? Almost every person is going to say a 7 or an 8. And then I say, and I know that's coming. So,
Yeah.
Of course, I follow it up with, why is it a 7 and not a 5 and not a 10?
Right.
And then we start getting into then I start to learn, is it actually a 7, or is it actually or are they actually closer to 9 and they're just being hard on themselves, or do they think they're doing really well and they're actually way off?
Right.
So that, I think it's important to like identify, and then that main pillar of lifestyle, like, that's a big one, and that's obviously that's somewhere where someone like you might come in if we need to dig in and we think there's a limiting factor there. But it's really like, from a general population person, like, all of those matter. Sometimes with athletes we think, as long as they're fit, that's all that matters, but that's not really the case. A healthy athlete means a robust athlete. It means someone that's probably going to have a longer career, probably a little bit more durable. So being healthy also makes the athlete.
Very good. I would imagine, too, that you're always sifting through myths or misinformation.
Sure.
They might come to you and say, Jason, I read or I heard this information from a friend that this is going to change things.
Yeah.
Right? So I imagine a lot of it is staying current on training methods, on supplements, on nutrition, a lot of things.
That's amazing point. I think like that never ends, and I think with the access to knowledge, and obviously people who want to sell something or genuinely want to offer information, but they need to keep coming up with content, they get into the weeds. I'm not against it, because I think some people are due for nuances because they've built the foundation so well. But most people the foundation's not good, which is why I come back to, like, I use this silly analogy where I'm like, if you're taking in, a 12-pack of beer a week, and you're eating, what we would classify as terrible food regularly, and you're worried about, like, should I have, like, green tea or black tea? Like, that's a nuance that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's a layer that is so far down the road that, we were talking about routines earlier, like morning routines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, those are all good. What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And is that the biggest rock right now? And for sure, all the time, people will send me something, be like, hey, I read this. What do you think? And chances are it has some validity to it. It's rare that something is totally off. Sometimes, but not most of the time, there's something to it. But it's like, is that the thing we need to care about right now? We only have so much bandwidth.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine just you working in health and working with clients, and I would imagine that one of your biggest tasks is being a salesman, is that you're trying to sell people on perhaps a concept or an idea that you might have. Maybe talk to us about maybe one of those things that you're selling is motivation. Maybe one of those things that you're selling is habit formation. How do you go about doing that? Because if you have the answer, I'd love to know. Just dealing with a lot of different people. Motivation, maybe, and habit formation.
Well, I would say it's interesting. Like, again, been doing this for a long time. So the conversations, it used to be to the point where it's like, I got to find something that's different than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I tried so hard that I was going into the weeds of kind of like what you'd find, like what we just talked about. It's like, someone's trying to sell something, and that's the magic pill.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
right.
Go on. And what I realized is just being upfront with them is the best sales tactic. Like, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to paint a picture. I want to understand them. And as soon as I do that and start asking deeper questions, and they start to actually give me real answers, starting to show them the light and like a manageable tactic and a manageable plan to move forward and see how that could lead to success, they start now are motivated. I didn't really do much. I just opened the door a little bit and gave them a bit of a clear path, because nowadays it's so overwhelming with how much information is available.
Yeah.
Like, what's the best, like people ask me, what's the best training program? I said, I don't know. First of all, the one you're going to do.
Yeah.
That's number one. But then it's like, well, what are you trying to, what's the problem?
Yeah.
What are you, we got to solve for X. So if we can identify what the goal is and then identify the limiting factors in a priority list, then we just start slowly chipping away at those limiting factors, and we're always kind of reevaluating. So I feel like motivation ends up just, I don't try to motivate. Like I'm not a cheerleader. It's not my style.
Yeah.
But I think naturally through those, like, hey, this is our game plan. Like, this is going to work. And they see it. And they're like, oh, that's manageable too. I could do that long term. Okay. Now the motivation is the process versus the end goal. We use the end goal to figure out the process, and then we attack the process.
Okay.
Every once in a while, reevaluate, are we still going in the right direction? But the reality is if you're not enjoying the process, or if it's not manageable, then the goals are somewhat irrelevant.
Will you use certain benchmarks or standard assessments or anything like that are really your go-tos, where you would get some definable number, some quantitative value that shows the athlete that they are actually moving along?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when it comes to athletes playing a particular sport, especially in hockey, hockey's a tricky one because there's yet to really be high correlation between off-ice capacity and on-ice production. So it's hard to say that a Bulgarian split squat is doing it at X amount of weight for a certain amount of reps is going to end up with an extra 5 goals next year.
Yeah.
It's basically impossible. What we can do is start to identify, the way we do it with our athletes is we paint a profile of the type of athlete through testing. So we will do jump tests in different types, which tells us if the athlete's more elastic versus force production, meaning are they a whippy type of athlete or are they a strong athlete that can kind of push through the ground well?
Like doing plyometrics and that kind of thing?
Yeah, but we'll do them in different ways. Yeah. So, for example, we use something called a counter movement jump, where it's just, hey, stand on a mat and jump as high as you can. Use as much momentum as you want, go. Yep. Then we'll make them sit down and no momentum, and then see how high they get. And then we can look at the relationship between those two. Oh. So if we get some athletes who are super wiry, like just whippy, wired athletes, the counter movement jump, they're probably going to fly, compared to the other one, we call that force production, where it's like from a dead stop, how much force can you put through the ground? Yeah. Then you have other athletes who are the opposite. Oh, and I don't care about the number because on the ice, they're not vertically jumping, but I get to see the type of person they are. So that might dictate some of the training protocols or how they execute movements in their program. And then we'll do some upper body tests, and then we'll do some conditioning tests. And it just tells us kind of like, where are they on the spectrum of each of those different where are they on the different levels of, upper body strength, lower body strength, aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity. We start to see kind of where they are on those scales. Yep. And it just helps us write a better program, because if the athlete wants to be well-rounded, then we just need to identify where they're relatively weak to the other parts and then try to bring them up.
Okay.
If we have, sometimes the conversation is, well, the athlete maybe is getting older and there's not a lot of time left in their pro career to balance them out. And we're like, you know what, why don't we just lean into your strengths? So we use testing on our athlete side a little bit more, identify potential, if we do a left versus right jump, left leg versus right, we might see if we see a big difference, okay, that might look at a qualitative perspective. Yeah. But the numbers for us, I care a little bit more about how the athlete presents themselves. Reality is we can't, there's nothing we can test off the ice that's going to guarantee anything on the ice, and that's just fact. When it comes to general population, there is plenty of correlation between certain things. VO2 max, grip strength, those are some of the two best probably the two best predictors of all-cause mortality. Yeah. So if someone's willing to give me a VO2 max test, I'll take it, because then it paints a picture. I don't mind a DEXA scan for the average person, look at bone density, muscle mass, fat mass, as a baseline, if nothing else. So I'm not a huge testing guy, but it's not bad to kind of get a baseline of where someone's at. And if they have a specific goal, then we can start digging in.
Very cool. Tell me about Junction, and tell me how that all came about in Etobicoke.
Yep.
What's the culture like? Like, what can I expect as Joe athlete that I walk through the door? What am I going to see? What am I going to experience there?
Sure. We've just moved into a new facility a little under 2 years ago. Beautiful setup. We're definitely more of a boutique style space. We were built for hockey players.
Yep.
It was designed that way for the summer. We're affiliated with a sports agency, and our main objective is to support their athletes. That being said, we also run a full year business. So we don't only work with the agency's athletes. We can obviously work with any athlete, any hockey player from any agency. It's fine. And for the general population, we are appointment only. So it's not a swipe-in membership type of place.
Yep.
Our gym is only 3,000 square feet. It's not a big unit, but it's done right. You walk in, it has a wow factor to it. Our owners were extremely generous in allowing us to Andy and I basically were able to design this place how we wanted with the equipment that we wanted.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Our locker rooms are great. We have sauna, cold tub, individual shower. Like, it's a nice setup. Like, all you literally have to do is walk in with a change of clothes and everything else is covered. Post-workout shakes, all the things. So for anyone wanting to come in, whether it's an athlete or not, obviously our summers are are a little busier with our hockey players, but even the rest of the year, if someone just wants to come in, we don't have a service list. Like, we don't have a menu that most places would have. What we've actually figured out, having talks with my trainers, like I want their input. They're very experienced as well. So it's nice to have an amazing group of people under one roof, of really smart people that have great ideas. And what we figured out is all that matters is the person in front of us, not us. A lot of places, and this isn't to knock on, I'm not trying to put down other services, because I think anyone going to a fitness place, I've been a trainer, I've been through the grind. Go see your trainer. Like, don't change if you like them. Like, stay with them. But one thing I've realized, having done this for so long, is I've always had, like, okay, if you want to do 20 sessions, this is how much it is. If you want to do a weight loss protocol, this is how it works. And it's the client or the person is having to adapt to the model of the space.
Okay.
And it's like, well, what if we did it the other way around? And we just sat down with them for no cost and just said, what's going on?
Yeah.
Tell me about you. Like, why would you step through the door in the first place? And what potential problem could we help you solve? And then we dig in. And that's how we start with people. So take the hockey guys out of it and just, gen pop some of our executive athletes. And I'll just say, come in for a coffee. There's no charge. Stay as long as you want, and we're gonna sit you down with a trainer, and they're just gonna learn about you. And then, of course, we quote them on the service that we feel is necessary, and that could be a nutrition coach, that could be obviously training, could be, hey, I live pretty far, I can only get in like once a week or whatever. Cool. What do you have at home? Do you have another gym membership?
Yeah.
Well, virtual training programs. Here you go.
Yeah.
We can basically do whatever. We can have a meal service set up for, like, I'll call and get a chef to deliver meals once a week to you. Like, if that's the problem, then let's find a solution together. And then we just create a quote accordingly. And it's like someone you want to do renos at your house and someone else coming in to tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you mean? This is my house.
Yeah.
So
I like
we kind
that
of do it the other way
approach.
around.
I like that approach that you're talking about. It's really client centered, isn't it?
That's all it is. And we don't do a ton of marketing, and we've grown a significant amount with, like, we literally just got a website like a month ago.
Okay.
So we get most of our referrals are word of mouth, and our space doesn't really have foot traffic. Yeah. So we're lucky. Like, I just keep telling my trainers, be patient. Keep taking care of the people that are in front of you as best as you possibly can, and watch what happens.
Anyways, Jason, that was really enlightening, and thank you so much for joining us today. Your job is very cool. I think it's great. And you're making a bit of a road trip, so I appreciate you driving down the QEW.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah,
No, happy to be here. I really appreciate having me. I think, honestly, I think what you're doing and the types of questions that you ask are just going to help a lot of people. So anytime you want me back, I'm game for it. So I appreciate it.
Sounds great. Sounds awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kev.